Hello and welcome to The Humanity of Sales, where purpose meets profit. I am your host, Heather Hansen O'Neill, and as always, we have an incredible guest for you today. We're going on an adventure today. We're going to transition from business to music, which we'll find out is actually business too, and we're going to continue to focus on the humanity of sales, which is the humanity of leadership and interacting in a way that serves, and how that ultimately will come back to you. So I'm going to introduce you to our guest today. After spending 30 years in sales and operations, executive roles in the mortgage business with multiple Fortune 100 companies, Kevin Dilday has spent the last more than 2 years as a full-time musician and sound engineer. He's opened for platinum recording artists and shared the stage with world-class musicians in both the US and the UK. And I can't wait to introduce him to you. Kevin, how are you today?
Excellent, Heather. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, I am very happy to have you here. Now, there's so many things that I want to ask you about, but let's kind of look at it linearly. So we'll go back to your corporate career first. So looking back at that career, can you think of the times that humanity played a role in how you led your teams or the decisions that you made?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Heather, I did spend 30 years in the corporate world, and one of my earliest mentors, probably within my first month of getting out of college and going to work, taught me that to get the things you truly want in life, you have to help enough other people get what they truly want. And that really embarked me on the path to being a servant leader throughout my career, and just constantly looking to help people become the best that they could be, giving them the tools to succeed, holding them accountable, of course, but pushing them to be the best that they could be and helping them along the way.
I love that. Now, what was in your heyday in the corporate career? How many people did you lead?
The biggest group I had was, it was well over 1,000 people that I was responsible for. I've spent time with, I'm not sure if I can say the names of companies on your
If
show,
you
but I've
would
spent
like
time
to,
with
you're welcome
uh,
to.
Bank of America, Citibank, and the old Countrywide Mortgage. So I've had large groups. I was based out of Dallas, and I led groups that were based in Texas and Southern California. So I've had responsibility for very large groups. And the bigger the group, the more important it was for me to get to know as many people as I could, not just my direct reports, but to interact with people on a daily basis. And you've got to be genuine about it. It can't come across as you're just asking for the sake of it. You've got to have a genuine interest. And I know we'll get to the music later on, but that's really aligned with what I do now as a musician. Now, when we take breaks on the stage, I go out and I thank the people in the crowd for coming out to see the show. So it's really the same thing I did throughout my corporate career. Just try to find a genuine connection and bond with people so that they know you truly care about them.
Yes, so I actually came to know Kevin through the music side, obviously, since he's doing that right now. And that's the first thing I noticed about Kevin. Obviously, he's also an awesome drummer, but what I noticed is that he really seemed to care about people. You're very authentic, Kevin, and you have this way about you that makes people want to open up and talk. And so we're going to spend more time on the music, but I'm going to bring it back to the corporate side for a minute. I can see how that would create an environment for your people that enabled them to feel open, to try new things, to communicate in a way that may be vulnerable, asking for help if they needed it. What are some other ways that you were able to create an environment for people that helped them to thrive?
I think setting people up for success is putting them in roles where it plays to their strengths, recognizing if they're in a role that's not necessarily their strengths. If you know enough about them and have taken the time to get to know them on a personal level, you may be able to slide them into a different role where they can be more successful. So really trying to find where the best in people lies so that you can set them up for long-term happiness on their part. I've got a poster hanging in my office right now. You can't see it. It's a John Lennon quote that says the when he was in school, the teacher gave him assignment to write down what he wanted to be in life, and he said, "I want to be happy." And the teacher said, "Well, you don't understand the assignment." And his response was, "Well, you don't understand life."
Oh.
And to me, it's so much of life is being happy and helping other people be happy. And I know in the corporate world, where I'm assuming a lot of your listeners are right now, I know there's still accountability, there's pushing to be successful, there's driving for profits, but you can't do that at the expense of not being human with your employees, with your coworkers, and getting to know them and helping them to be happy with the work that they're doing.
I think now more than ever that is incredibly important because there's a lot of angst. And anything that we can do to create a positive, happy environment for people is going to come back. And I'm going to say come back from a perspective of what we believe here in the humanity of sales. Our tagline is where purpose meets profit, is that you're not doing it for this intention. You're doing it with the best of, intentions, to serve and to do good things for people. But ultimately, if you do those right things for your people, for your customers, and in the community, it will come back. We believe in the correlation to profitability. Do you agree in that? Does it come back?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And I think the companies that are only focused on profit at the expense of their employees have high turnover, and they're constantly getting new people in. But I think, and I've been very fortunate with the organizations and the bosses I've had, and I think it's true. People don't leave a company; they leave a boss. So
True.
if you're a boss, you really have to um, wrap your arms around your people and make sure they know you care about them. But I think the companies that do that well have less turnover, have happier employees, and the profits come with it, not at the expense of it.
Yes. Agreed. Now, I really like stories, and my listeners really like stories. So before we move into the music part, where I'm going to ask you to give me a story, before we do that, do you have one of your favorite stories of something that you or your company did to support your people or exceed customer expectations?
This may be kind of silly, but this is something that impacted me, and I still remember it when I was younger in my career. I was out on a business trip, and there was someone very senior in the organization in the room, and someone was speaking. I forget who was even there speaking, but they were having problems with the projector. And I've always been interested. I've always been a musician. I started playing music when I was 5 years old. I've always been interested in audio engineering. They were having trouble. I got up from my seat, and there were probably, I don't know, 150 people in the room. But I went up and I fixed everything for them. I made sure the speaker was set and got it all done. Long story short, the senior guy in that room saw me do that, and that led to me getting a significant promotion and going to work for him. And he told me later, he was like, you just saw an issue, you came up to help. There was nothing in it for you, and those are the kind of people that I want to come work for me. He ended up being a great boss for me, and I worked for him for many years. But I got the job just by not thinking about myself, but how can I help someone else? And clearly, in that situation, someone was having a problem, and I knew I could fix it, so I jumped up to help, and that ended up being a great career move for me. Who would have
And
thought?
I see you doing that all the time, Kevin. You're really good at that. But here's what it makes me think about. It's a fantastic story. It also makes me think about how sometimes, if you're just being the best version of yourself, you're just doing things the right way for the right reasons, people are going to watch, they're going to see it, and things are going to come from it. And it makes me think about parenting too. If you're
Yeah.
just doing the right things, those little beings are watching. They're picking up on it, whether you're doing the right things or not. They're picking up on whatever it is that you're doing versus what you're saying. But in this scenario, that's a great boss who can pick out, okay, this is the type of person that I want working with me. This is somebody who believes the same things that I do, that is willing to go over and above, that's willing to help, and has got some skills. I think that was a great move and a great story. So thank you for that. Now, what made you decide? Now, I know you said you've been a musician since you were 5, but what was that deciding point to transition from the corporate world into music?
You mentioned kids a second ago. My kids were getting older. Two are already out of the house now. My youngest is about to go into the military. So my kids were getting older. I've just spent so much time in the corporate world that I wanted to do something that really burned the fires within me. And the passion that I've always had has been for music. And I had a chance to start working as a musician full time and just decided, hey, at the age I'm at now, if I don't do it now, perhaps I never will. So I didn't want to have any regrets, and I don't. I'm thrilled with what I do, and that's not to disparage the corporate world that I spent so long in, but I figured if I don't take this risk right now, I'll wake up and it'll be too late one day.
Mm. In addition to the heart of humanity, the adventure mindset is the other part of what I do. And that adventure mindset is being able to press outside of what's comfortable and to take risks sometimes because you'd rather not have that feeling of regret, right? And so what you did was just that. And I love that story. That's fantastic. Now, we are going to be going into a commercial break very soon. But before we do, just if you can just give us a feel for what this music business looks like for you, because you have a combination of playing and then also, engineering and tell us what that looks like. And then we're going to go to break and I have some more questions about the music biz on the other side.
Yeah, so I do play drums. That's where my biggest passion is. I have an outstanding guitarist who's played with the likes of Dolly Parton that I get to play with. I describe that as my full-time job. We do probably 125 gigs a year.
That's a full-time job.
Either us as a duo or we'll have a bass player. We'll play as a trio. Aside from that, I fill in with several bands. I've been fortunate enough. Um, there's several local regional bands where they have one in particular has a drummer that also works for a touring country artist out of Nashville. So when he's gone, I fill in on drums for the regional band here. And then I also run sound. I just ran sound for a Grateful Dead tribute band this past weekend. I enjoy that. I've got all the equipment. That's really been the biggest learning curve for me is learning all the ins and outs of live sound. And then I also do studio work. I've done recording sessions for multiple artists that are out on Apple Music and iTunes right now. And in fact, I've got one coming up at the end of this month. A local artist reached out to me, and we're going to get together, and I'm going to come up with the drum parts for some of his original songs, and we're going to go into the studio at the end of this month. So a little bit of everything on the music side.
Now, that's great. Now, so it speaks to me in a couple of different ways. One, I'm a fan of variety. So I like, okay, great. You've got these three different parts of your business. This is great for it being fun. But I also think it's probably the best way to actually make a living as a musician is to have multiple pillars, correct?
100%, because unless you are, you know, Katy Perry or Taylor Swift, you're not getting rich in the music business. If you do it right, you can make enough to make a living where you don't have to have a day job. Honestly, a lot of my friends here do have a day job, so you've really got to hustle to not have a day job and be a full-time working musician. And to your point, Heather, that means doing multiple things. If I was only playing drums, it wouldn't work. So I have to be able to do multiple things to make sure I stay busy and stay working 5 or 6 nights a week.
Tell us about the scene here on the Strand. It feels like you musicians, a lot of you know each other. Like it's almost like a family. Is that just my impression?
Oh no, you're spot on, Heather. It's very much like a family. The thing about where we are here in the Grand Strand, the Myrtle Beach area, and why so many musicians, professional working musicians, live here. So there's very few places in America or the world, for that matter, where you can live and play music professionally 7 nights a week, year round. The climate is great here. The biggest factor for us is there are over 2,700 liquor licenses in the Grand Strand area.
What?
Most of those locations have some form of live music at some time or other. And now that runs from Little River to Georgetown. So it's a big area. But in that big space, so many of these venues are having live music that it really presents an opportunity. I mentioned my guitarist to you earlier. He's a world-class guitarist, has played with famous people, still does occasionally. He actually just did a run with a touring ABBA tribute band out of Europe recently. So he could live anywhere and play anywhere. He lives here because it's a great place to raise a family. And he can play music if he wanted to 7 nights a week here. So that's the advantage to being here. And to your point, it's definitely become a family. We all kind of know each other. So if someone needs a drummer or a guitarist, we know who to call. You don't have to go on Craigslist and find someone you don't know. I mentioned to you earlier, I do fill in with a lot of different bands. There's probably 4 or 5 that I'll probably get a call from at some point this year to do a gig for. And it's because they know me, they've seen me play with my regular guitarist, and they know I can step in without any rehearsal and be able to come in and cover the gig.
That's huge, and the term that I've heard in that scenario is somebody who's a hired gun. So this is somebody who
Mhm.
can come in and just pick it up with like maybe one rehearsal or just already knows the song. Somebody's sick, you're gonna come save the day. And I have this vision of you wearing like a cape, right? Because if you've got a gig and you need to play that night so that you don't have a bad rap for skipping out on your gig, you need to be able to make it happen. So having this family, these resources, these people that you trust, and part of the humanity of sales has to do with trust. Right, building trust within your team, with your customers, out into the community, and I know that's something that those of us who know you, we're like, okay, yeah, we can trust Kevin. So how do you feel about how to foster trust? If you were to tell people listening right now, what would be the advice that you would give them?
I think a lot of it, Heather, is what we talked about earlier, is being genuine and being authentic and being your real self at all times. So that people who call me to fill in for a gig, they know what they're going to get because they've seen me enough to know that it's not some act I'm putting on. This is who I really am. They know I'm going to show up prepared. And I think this applies to the corporate world too. Show up prepared, be ready, know what your job is, what your role is, and then execute to the best of your ability. Doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes. I make mistakes just about every show I play, probably, but it's a matter of being able to play through those, knowing your role. And like I said, I think that truly applies to the corporate world too. That's no different than when I was doing my corporate gig, how I approached my daily life there.
Let's talk about that for a moment because running a business as a musician is still a business. And so
100%. Yeah.
what did you learn from that corporate world other than that very, very important authenticity in how you show up? But is there anything else that you learned from that you've brought in to enable you to run a viable business?
Yeah, I think I was actually surprised at just how many similarities there were, Heather, and in really treating it like a business. I think coming into this, I thought, okay, now I get to have fun. And then I quickly realized, okay, you're working with promoters, you're working with club owners, you're working with booking agents. They're all in it to make money. So you have to have your business hat on when you're dealing with all the people you work with, and that includes people we play with. So Greg, the band I'm in, it's called the Interns. Greg and I own that band, but we'll get other people to play gigs with us. So that's just like a business. We hire someone as a contracted player to come in and cover those gigs with us when we need it. Um, One aspect that I also was surprised, you mentioned this earlier, and I agree with you, how important storytelling is.
Hmm.
And I don't mean storytelling as in fibbing, but storytelling as in painting a picture.
Yeah.
Um, Most of my 30 years in the corporate world was spent on the sales side, where it's all about painting a picture when you're selling something. And that's very much the case with music. If we're trying to go into a new venue, We're painting the picture for the venue owner. Hey, here's who we are. These are other gigs we've played. The picture we're trying to paint for them is a full house with people eating, drinking, the club owner making money. When we're actually on stage, we're telling a story to the audience that night. We're telling them, hey, for the next 2 hours or whatever time you're here with us, I want you to forget about the bad day you had at work. I want you to forget about the fight you may have had with your significant other. I want you to think about nothing but feeling the energy of the music we're providing and be in a space with us for the next couple of hours where the outside world doesn't matter. And we just want to make you happy. So it's still painting a picture, and that's where I translate that back to exactly what I did for 30 years in the sales world was painting a picture for people.
Fantastic. I am in complete agreement with you. And of course, this is the perfect transition for me to say, hey, I was asking you if you wanted to give us a story about like your favorite fun thing or challenge that you overcame in the music world, because you gave us an awesome story as it related to the business world. What do you have for us in the music world?
I think your radio show is probably rated G, so a lot of the stuff from the music world
Okay,
are
gotcha.
probably pink label. But I will say, I do a lot of fill-in work, and that's exciting for me, especially when it's an artist that has a record deal. I rock is my favorite genre, but I end up playing country. I end up playing R&B. I play a little bit of everything. Um, so I did get a call to fill in with a country artist out of Nashville, and it was a one-off gig, and it was here at Myrtle's Inlet, the Marsh Walk, and I had never met the band before, and they gave me a set list, and you can prepare, but it's still going to be drastically different when you get on stage because the arrangements are going to be different, how they play it's different. So no matter how much you prepare, if you don't have rehearsal, it's still stressful. So first set went pretty good. We get up for the second set, and everything was going fine. And all of a sudden, I run in ears for your audience that may not know. They're a monitoring system in my ear, so I can hear things. I don't have wedges on the ground. All of a sudden, I can no longer hear the bass in my ears. So I turn to my left and I look over, and the bass player was an older gentleman. I looked down and he was completely slumped down on the floor,
Oh
passed
no.
out. And I was, I thought he was dead. He was completely out, but I didn't stop playing because I didn't want the audience to panic. There was a lot of people there. I got the guitarist's attention. He got the lead singer's attention, and he told us to keep playing. He came back and got him. Long story short, the bass player was okay. He had a heat stroke, so he had passed out. But that was quite an experience for me. I just met all these people that day getting on stage and then having that happen right next to me. So you got to be prepared for anything and everything. And in that spot, I felt like my job was keep playing so the audience doesn't panic and people think that there's a major emergency until we figure out what's going on.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin with this story, Kevin. It's fantastic. It's taking me right back to my performance years. Most of you who are listening know that my first career was that of a professional dancer, and so there's that stage and performance element as well. And what was the saying? It was the show must go on. And so
Always.
you had that, and to be able to act as if nothing else is going on, because most of the time the audience isn't going to know unless your face tells them that they should know that something is going on, right? So you had that professionalism, you knew that, but you also communicated with the band to make sure that you were helping that band member to get the help that they needed. And so it's a great story. I mean, in the world today, whether it's playing at a gig or whether it is in business, part of the humanity of sales is knowing that you have to be adaptable. The change is the biggest thing that we're dealing with on a consistent basis now, right? So we have to be able to be resilient to continue going even when times are difficult. So we are flying through this show, and I'm having such a great time hearing your stories, Kevin. But what's on the horizon for you? What's next for you? And also during this answer, please also provide maybe a website where people, if they want to check out where you're going to be playing, you can let them know that as well.
Yeah, our website is internsband.com. and you can find out where we'll be on there. Like I said earlier, we stay pretty busy. I stay busy with sound too. I'm actually off tonight, so I'm going to go check some music out. That's what I usually do on my nights off.
Mhm.
And tomorrow night I'll be running sound at a venue called The Backyard for Paul Grimshaw Band, who's a local legend here. So next for me is continuing to stay busy with music. Two of my kids live in the UK, so I spend a fair amount of time there now. Maybe one day in the future, being a full-time musician in the UK is what I would like to do. We'll see how that turns out. But
We
just
can't
enjoying
lose you here, Kevin. You gotta have both.
yeah.
I'm an and girl, not an or girl. Have your UK career and keep coming back and wowing us with your music and your sound engineering here as well. Kevin Dilday, thank you so much for coming on the show, for sharing your wisdom, and for everything that you do out there every day to expand humanity. It's part of who you are, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Heather, can I leave you with one quote that kind of drove
Yeah,
me
please
to talk on
do.
this? And it means a lot to me. It's never let the quest for more distract you from the beauty of enough. And that's where I really got in my head that, okay, instead of just chasing more money and spending more time on that, enough for me is having enough money to live on and to be able to go out and play music every night. So.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And listeners, if you loved it as well, let us know. Reach out, Heather at thehumanityofsales.com, or go to internsband.com and check out Kevin, one of the gigs he's got coming up. And until next time, live that adventure and the humanity of sales, where purpose meets profit.